Valvetronic Designs. Today we're in a very strange place to do an install, but we're going to be showing you how to install your new F chassis exhaust. In this demonstration we'll be using a F30 335i. Now this install is incredibly easy. There's actually only 2 bolts for the hangers, and then if your exhaust has already been cut, you just loosen the other 2 on the clamp. If you have not cut your stock exhaust yet, we'll show you where to cut your stock system. Let's get started. The first step is going to be backing the car up onto the ramps like such. Make sure the handbrake is set and the car is in park. The next step that we're about to show you is vital for making sure that your exhaust is installed correctly. When you park your car, you need to make sure the exhaust valve is oriented closed in your F chassis car, because that is how we will install the new valve. You must have the orientation to close. So using an app like BimmerLink or just driving around the car in comfort mode, the valve's open there. We'll close the valve, and then now go under the car and you'll see the vacuum, or I'm sorry, not the vacuum, the electronic plug. Disconnect it so the valve stays open, just like that. Okay, so once you're underneath the car, BMW does a great job and they indicate where you need to cut the stock exhaust. You'll see on this pipe, this 3-inch mid pipe that goes back to the front of the car, there's a dimple in this pipe, like a little round dimple where you can run your finger over it and you feel how the metal changes. Right there, that is the indication of where to cut. It's on the M2s, the 335s, 435s, 340s. It's on all of these cars. What we recommend is cutting there, and also making sure you measure, use the exhaust in the box and set it while you're underneath. Sit yourself underneath and just position the tips correctly, and you can measure how much you need to cut. Don't overcut the system, because if you do, you're gonna have to go to an exhaust shop and re-weld it. If the stock exhaust has already been cut, you need to remove this BMW exhaust clamp. There are 2 17mm here. And the whole system will come loose. And you can slide this exhaust clamp out of the way. And so now it's no longer connected, except for the 2 exhaust hangers. Now once you remove the 17mm bolts on your exhaust clamp, you need to remove the 13mm bolts holding on the exhaust hangers. There's one here, and the other side, there's one here in the exact same spot. So again, viewers, you need to remove the 13s on the side. So with an impact driver or socket set, remove one, add that side. I got it supported here. You didn't get it.
Should we restart?
No. Okay, put the drill to the side, and now hop out. And that's how simple it is to remove the factory exhaust. With your new exhaust on the ground next to your factory exhaust, you need to remove these 2 exhaust hangers. The best way to do it is to use some silicone or WD-40 to loosen them up. Of course, because we're out in the sticks, we don't have that, but you'll be able to pull them off with some force. Reattach them to the new exhaust, the much better sounding exhaust, if I might say. Once you've pulled the factory exhaust hangers off the factory system and put them on the new Valvetronic Designs exhaust, the next step is to remove the factory exhaust valve. 3 10mm. And the exhaust valve unit comes right off. Make sure to save this little clip with your stock exhaust in case you ever want to go back to stock if you ever sell the car or anything of that nature. Over here we have our new valve position. We have a new spring that works better with this valve setup. The way you orient it is make sure the exhaust valve is closed. This is open, that's closed. take the long end and set it in like such, just like this. Make sure it's exactly like this, otherwise it won't operate properly. This step is very important to ensure that your exhaust valve fully closes. Come close. So with the exhaust valve spring installed, you want to make sure there's no play in this spring. The best way to do this is to actually only use 2 of the screws and rotate the valve assembly so it's pinned against the closed wall. Because if it opens just a little bit, you'll get some rattle, which you don't want in this setup. So make sure that it's fully bottomed out and you're ready to install this exhaust onto your F-chassis BMW. So now with another person handy, put the system up, and then with the exhaust valve hangers, have one person hold and one person grab the nuts and thread them on in the same way that you remove them from the factory system. This is how the exhaust is bolted to the bottom of the car. Okay. Just as you saw, there's a hanger here and here. These are 13 millimeters. Just get them on hand tight for right now. And the next step is to position the supplied clamp and connect the 2 sides of the exhaust. Grab your 13 or 17 millimeter. Make sure this is properly aligned right in the middle. Not too tight for right now, as we want to make sure the tips are properly oriented before we tighten the system down fully. Make sure that the outlets look straight, and then you can tighten down the hangers properly. Move the 13 millimeter, put the 17 back on, and tighten the exhaust clamp down. So now, in your box, you will find an exhaust valve controller harness extension. From where the factory exhaust valve connects, insert the female side into the connector. Make sure it clicks. And then you're going to want to run this unit up high so that it's not getting burnt by the hot exhaust. We like to fish it behind this heat shielding here. And any excess you can just push up into this area and have it sit there, because it's all weather shielded, so you're not going to have a problem with moisture getting in or any of those issues. Push the shield back into the position it was before you put the controller behind it. And last step, connect it into the exhaust valve. Make sure too that when you're routing the controller harness, make sure that it's nowhere near the hot exhaust. You can bend this wire a little bit and make sure that it's sitting properly so it's not going to come down and touch the hot exhaust. Once the physical exhaust has been installed, the controller set up, it's time to install your exhaust tips. Situate them like such. This is a 15 millimeter. And slide them onto the system. Make sure you have your desired length. If you want them to stick out a little bit, because your car may shoot flames, you're able to do so with these adjustable tips. Tighten them down just a little bit, and then make sure that they're properly oriented. And make sure that they're on nice and tight. Onto the driver's side tip. and make sure that it is oriented properly. If at this point you need to adjust the system to make sure the tips are perfectly aligned with the system, that the outlets are correct with the bumper, you can do this at this time. And once the exhaust tips are installed, it's now time to start it up. If you do your first initial startup, get your BimmerLink app, or if you don't have BimmerLink, just make sure that the exhaust valve is operating properly and start. Make sure you hear the valve opening and closing, and go ahead and start the car up. Make sure the valve is operating properly and fully closing. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for being part of our family. And now go out, drive, and enjoy.